Hello and welcome to Digital First, Transforming Manufacturing for the Age of Agility webinar. Today, we will be deep diving into the main challenges facing the manufacturing sector and how aspects such as technology, culture, and people can help to address them. I am Saša Petrović, Digital Strategy Director at Citrix and responsible for the digital transformation of our enterprise customers. And today, I'm joined by Patrick and Dave. However, let me allow the panel to introduce themselves. Patrick, if I may start with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Pernegger. I'm a global director for digital workplace in IT at Siemens, responsible for multiple digital workplace IT services, just as Windows, Mac, mobile devices. So everything that somehow connects our employees is what we are aiming for in our department.
Thank you, Patrick. Dave, if you may continue.
Oh, thank you. My name is Dave Turbide. I'm an independent consultant, writer, analyst. Spent about 30 years working with individual companies, helping them in their system implementations and helping the systems work for them and deliver results. For the last 15 years or so, I've done more writing than traveling. Blogs, books, white papers, that kind of thing. Looking at the industry and seeing how companies are applying technology and how they're dealing with the issues that inevitably come up when you're bringing new systems into your organization. So, there.
Thank you. Great to have you both on the panel today. I think we have actually the perfect setup today, as we have with Patrick someone from a customer, with Dave someone with a more neutral view, but also someone from the US with a different background when it comes to regulation on the manufacturing space, and myself also from a tech vendor. So this should really give us or allow us to have different point of views and cover multiple aspects in our conversations. So now let's get started. We recently conducted some research into the main challenges facing the manufacturing sector. Through this research and working with our clients, there are three key themes we consistently hear about. First, challenges around the supply chain. Second, security concerns. And third, talent retention. So in this webinar, we are going to explore these three themes and hear from our panel experts how they are addressing them. Let's start our discussion by exploring the supply chain in manufacturing today, because I think that's the most urgent and critical topic we face today. And manufacturers have been through a huge amounts of uncertainty with the pandemic and more recently the geopolitical uncertainty with the war in Ukraine, chip shortages or lockdowns in China. It feels to me that we have today delays everywhere in the value chain. So obviously resilience and agility in the supply chain is top of mind of the manufacturing executive. So now let me address also the first question to you, Patrick. Have you seen changes in the way your supply chain is operating in recent years? And if, how do they have changed?
Yeah, so from an IT perspective, looking at an obvious thing is the notebooks that we usually get over the market. And I don't want to make marketing for other vendors. So just let's call them the big vendors that usually gives us and provides us with notebooks. We see changes there. So when they produced recently or before short crisis or chip shortages in China or Taiwan, we clearly see they have changed the way where they produce. As an example, we see new productions in Asia or Latin America coming up, which helped us to significantly help us to get better lead times. So that is one thing that we see while not waiting 6 months for a new notebook for our employees, where we just take the advantage of getting back to former times where we were waiting 1 or 2 months for a production and a delivery of a new notebook, as an example.
Okay, and how big is this external impact to your organization? So how did you have to react on these challenges and the implications?
So our organization, when looking at Siemens as a company that is also next to being a digital company producing something, we haven't had that big impact. I think it was due to our We have an own purchase department, an SCM team. They used their excellent network. They talked with CEOs and other companies, suppliers, and made sure that all of our factories never stood still. So that is one of the positive things we can mention from a Siemens perspective as an own supplier.
Thank you. Yeah.
Supply chain disruptions are a way of life in the world of manufacturing. And what's going on now in the last 2 years is not really new. It's just amplified. Of course, with the restart after the shutdowns, which is almost completed, and then exacerbated by the Ukraine situation and other factors. It has woken up a lot of companies and supply chain managers to the realities of the workplace. They've been able to not ignore completely, but kind of downplay, the occasional chip shortage or disruption in the flow of rare earth metals and things like that. But there's just so many disruptions and so many things that are unavailable or stuck outside the port waiting for time to get unloaded and that kind of thing. It really has opened a lot of folks' eyes to the risk side of supply chain management, and something that I've always been very open about when I've taught classes or worked with individual companies. They'll make a sourcing decision, just kind of off the back of an envelope, say, okay, it's cheaper to get it from China, and that's the end of it. And then they pay the price when there's a disruption. And it doesn't really matter what the source of the disruption is, whether it's geopolitical or a hurricane or a nuclear plant shut down or whatever it is. The impact is the same. You can't get the parts that you need to keep producing. And we've seen the knee-jerk reactions. They'll try to find another supplier in another geographic area, or that's not impacted by whatever the disruption was this time around. And then there's always an underlying current of, well, let's nearshore or reshore. Let's find some suppliers closer by that won't be affected by these things. But that hasn't worked out really well, because what happens in the marketplace, and this is a generalized and very high level view, but we source things where they're cheapest and where they're available, and quality is acceptable and those other factors. And we have allowed ourselves to become wholly dependent on certain suppliers in certain areas of the world. And then when there is a disruption, we have no alternative. We don't mine rare earth minerals in the U.S. anymore. We don't make small plastic parts or anything that requires a significant amount of labor content. We just don't do it. Those businesses have been driven out of business by the realities of the supply market.
So you mentioned now one topic in particular, which was onshoring, nearshoring, and that is used today quite often as the answer to these supply chain disruptions.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point, right? So I had a customer conversation. They started in, I would say, late 2021 to explore ways how to do the nearshoring. But one of the simplest aspects was they just don't have the right talents in the other areas, right? So building a plant is one thing, but having also the talents is a different thing. So they've also, when it comes to localization and regionalization, what kind of challenges do you see in this transition? Is it possible in short term, or is it something for the next 5-6 years? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, it's mostly the latter. It's going to take time. We have these industries that have vanished from our shores, and to try to rebuild them, it's just not possible under the old way of doing things. The labor rates in the Western world just can't compete with what's being done in the Far East. So automation is the answer.
Yeah.
And when we build these new factories, they are highly automated. They have to get the labor content out. which is good news for those of you in the business of building automation and installing automation. But it's really, it's the only answer. The only way we're going to be able to produce parts that are competitive is with automation and a very low labor content. And then we can win the business through availability and reliability and quality and those kind of things, where we can compete.
And Dave, just want to add, it's digitization, automation, and somehow I think what helps is simulation. So what we figured out when talking about these spare parts and things and shortages, we are always, from a Siemens perspective, producing things. Is it power plant with Siemens Energy, or is it we support manufacturing something? So what we learned is really once switching over to a digital twin, that's what we call doing a simulation of a factory fully in a virtual world, while then running it in the virtual world. As an example, when starting such a factory, figured out we used the screws were too tiny. So after operations, we could of course simulate 10 years runtime, they broke. So we solved it in a simulation, changed to bigger screws and didn't buy them, understanding while building it up, it's too tiny, and then buying another part. So that saved that saved everything. So simulation, as far as it works, for sure, is also an answer that we see, at least from a Siemens perspective.
And that's a major step forward in moving towards smart systems, and through the simulation, being able to try out different ways of doing things, and then eventually the software will do that for you. It can take that base of experience and the simulation, put them together and say, oh, why don't you try this? Because we've proven by a million examples that that's a better way to go. Produces a better product more quickly, more reliably, whatever. So it's all coming together. And that's really the exciting part of being in manufacturing today. Despite all the challenges, there are solutions out there, and there are new systems that are getting smarter all the time. And machine learning and AI and all of that is coming to its strength when it's most needed. So it's a really exciting time.
So speaking of digitization, what we have also seen in one of our research was actually that the topic of sustainability and digitization go hand in hand. So Patrick, I know from you, but also with other touch points from Siemens colleagues, that sustainability is one of the most important topics that you are facing today. So in order to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions as such, organizations also have to maintain third parties or the supply chain as such. It's not sufficient anymore just to look after their own CO2 emissions. You have to take care about the entire value chain. Mm-hmm. How is actually sustainability changing the way how you manage your suppliers and external partners?
So it has so many aspects. It's about talent retention, which we for sure later cover a little bit, because people from younger generations, but doesn't matter from which generation. Everyone understood that we have problems caused by us, and we can suddenly change that if we just matter. And therefore, as you just correctly said, it is a trending topic, but not even a trending. It is a topic that is absolutely necessary. And big companies are now understanding that more and more. As an example of Siemens again, so you asked me, we created a framework called Degree. So every first letter meant something for us. So it is, and we start with a D, and I just need to look at my notes. It's decarbonization. It is ethics, D. It is governance. We need to steer that. It is resource efficiency, equity, and employability. You see, under these buzzwords, that is a framework, a guiding principle for whole Siemens, how we interact with suppliers, with ourselves, with everyone. This is what matters now the most. And hopefully, if this Degree framework, we are training now extensively our people. And there is a nice book that says you need to tell someone 7 times something unless he really understands it, and that it goes over to your DNA. So Degree is the thing, and I can also mention now 7 times Degree, doesn't matter, but it is the framework that we are living and trying to use as a, call it North Star. This is the way that we need to do it.
I absolutely agree. I think it needs to be a holistic approach. So, Dave, I mean, you as a writer, analyst, or consultant, I suppose you have seen many different organizations and customers. What about their sustainability? How important is sustainability also in the US market? And what does it mean to neglect sustainability? Are you going to get any competitive advantage at some point?
Well, it's not an option to neglect sustainability. A lot of people looking over your shoulder, and the market recognizes that too. There are certain sets of customers that will not do business with you unless you can prove sustainability through the entire supply chain. So there's another vote for a shorter supply chain in nearby procurement. It's a whole lot easier to work with somebody that's down the street or in the next town than it is to try to get somebody in Malaysia to change the way they do business, to treat their employees better, or to reduce their carbon emissions or whatever. So yeah, it's a big thing. It's being a procurement officer or a buyer in a company today is significantly different than it was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. It's a much more complex part of the business, because you can't just look for the lowest price and the highest quality. You've got to also consider all these, good corporate citizenship issues, right down through, your suppliers. That makes the job very challenging, but there's no choice. It has to be done, not only to please your customers, but there's lots of regulations out there and guidelines and lots of people looking over your shoulder. And if you don't, satisfy them, they'll make it known very publicly, and that can hurt your business significantly.
But is it even possible to manage or maintain actually the third parties, also considering that your partners might be in a different country where we not the same sustainability targets apply, or they just do not follow actually the same targets or their journey?
I do. In my advanced years, I work with several nonprofits as a director and officer, and working with volunteers is very different than the corporate world, where, in the corporate world, if I have an employee that's not doing things the way I think should they be done, I can tell them in no uncertain terms, this is the way you need to do it, and they'll either do it or they'll move on, and we'll get somebody that can. Working with volunteers is very different. You got to be very careful how you address the need and give direction, and then hope that they will feel interested in complying with that request. And if they don't, there isn't much you can do about it, other than try to find another volunteer or work with them over time. That's very much the same way as working with a supplier that's in another geographic area, or a supplier's supplier who you will have to work with because it contributes to your product as well. You can't manage them. You can partner with them. You can work with them. You can encourage them and incentivize them in various ways. But it's their decision ultimately. And if they won't comply, then you have to find another supplier that will. And that's very difficult for you and the suppliers. So, it's a different management approach, but it's got to be done.
Agree. So to me, supply chain is very close actually to digitization, but with digitization, cybersecurity comes quite fast. So working with suppliers exposes also the IT system to an additional external threat. Patrick, how are you actually managing your suppliers from the security perspective?
It's the same, like we just talked about sustainability. I think cybersecurity must be part of the employees' DNA in addition, because once they work and do something sustainably, it must be secure. Otherwise, your property, your intellectual property might be stolen, or your whole process chain gets interrupted, corrupted, because a hacker did somehow damage to your system. When working with companies, with suppliers, with us, it starts with the contract. So we changed all our contracts to make sure that these suppliers follow the standards that we see as standard. Zero trust is just a nice buzzword where we really make sure that suppliers are monitored with these SLAs or KPIs we give them based, again, as mentioned, on a security standard that we see as the high standard necessary, which is zero trust. Don't trust anyone. Authenticate as much as possible. Yeah, that would be the way.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree.
As Ronald Reagan likes to say, trust but verify, right?
Yes, correct. Don't trust, always verify.
I just came across an article last week that 51% of all the attacks are coming actually from suppliers. So this means that at one point, if your partner is actually exposed or is hit by actually a security breach, that the likelihood that you are affected is also very high. So at that point, you really have to try to isolate your environment. And that's where I absolutely agree with you, Patrick. So it needs to be zero trust. Never trust, always verify, just-in-time access, just enough access. These are sort of the key terms and the key methods how to ensure that these issues are mitigated. Yeah. So Dave, so since the pandemic, all sorts of attacks have increased, and also the level of the attacks are also much more sophisticated than in the past. And what I also have realized is security has become all of a sudden a major priority, not only within IT, but also within the business. What kind of changes do you have witnessed in relation to the security conversations in organizations?
I've not been heavily involved in the security side. We have IT professionals who do that much better than I ever could. And your comment, Patrick, about the hacks coming from the suppliers or suppliers somewhere down the chain. It's easy to point fingers. However, in my experience, what I've seen, that does exist, and it is certainly a vulnerability. But within a company itself, the IT folks, they're professionals. They do a great job. In most cases, they are not to blame directly for incursions or hacks or damage. It comes down to the users. It's the individual users that slip. They don't follow the procedures entirely. They'll click on a known fake invoice or something like that, and there's nothing you can do mechanically to prevent that kind of thing. So in terms of the impact on the users themselves, they have to be trained and educated to be aware of what these threats are and how they get into the systems and their role in allowing those hacks, because that's the main vulnerability within an individual organization, and each of your suppliers and their suppliers down the chain face the same issue. So you really can't point fingers there, because it's our own employees that are letting the bad guys in inadvertently, hopefully. So that's the people side, which is always the hardest part of any kind of technology change or implementation.
I agree. The weakest link is the human factor, and it can always help. Again, we always come in circles and see how everything is connected. Digitize, automate, use robotics, or a human risk is train the human. So we are doing massive campaigns. We are even doing internal, not hacks, but we are targeting our users with things triggered by us, not by the real phishing email, but it is a phishing email. And if someone clicks on it, he gets to a web page with his manager or just a user. Tell him, hey, this time you had really luck. It is us, Siemens, doing this. But look, next time, if such a mail comes, hopefully now you are a bit more sensitive before you click on it, even if we promise the best cat video ever on the market. And that is the
we've got another aspect of that that's come to the fore in the last 2 years, where people have been working at home. So your mechanical security, your IT-based security is more vulnerable in that situation, where you have a play that comes comes to home and brings work with them, and they work on it all night, and that's great. We're getting more production out of the employee and so forth. And then they stick that thumb drive in their home computer, and then they bring it to work and they stick it in their desktop, and guess what? There was something nasty on that thumb drive. Yeah. So that makes the IT job that much more difficult, and opens another place where those things can sneak in. And there's not a whole lot we can do about that other than educate the users and make them more aware of what those vulnerabilities are, and hopefully enlist them in the fight rather than have moles within our organization.
I really like how you have shifted the conversation from technology to actually people and processes. And I think that's one key element. Yeah, absolutely. So I think you can have the best technology on earth. You can have the best defense on earth. But if you have a weak point or a weak, as Patrick said, a weak link, and which is usually and quite often the human, right? The best defense is useless, right? So you really need to balance actually technology, enablement, people, processes, in order again to have a holistic approach here as well. So, what I would like to say also here is what I really appreciate is that the security conversations are getting more and more visibility also on the top level. So it's not only the IT which talks about security, it's also the line of business, the CEO, even the CEOs, the CIOs. So the CISOs have finally a seat on the table. Budgets are increasing, right? And I think it's going into the right direction. And one of my daily jobs or daily routines is actually to read annual reports of organizations. And I would say this year, 10 out of 10, cybersecurity was one of the top 3 issues that we see in the market, right? So it goes definitely in the right direction. So the awareness is here.
If I can steer us towards one of the other items that was on our list of topics here, and that is this whole idea of people working remotely, working from home. Of course, there was a huge shift in that direction during the COVID months, years. And companies are now starting to bring those employees back, and they're not all happy about it. But the security issue is part of that. Companies are anxious to get people back in-house where they can have a better control over that security side. But I think that's kind of unfortunate. I'm a big believer in remote work. My son-in-law, in fact, has been working remotely in his job, and his company has just insisted, quite frankly, that he work at the facility several days a week now, and it's very inconvenient because he's much more productive at home. So he'll start work at 8 o'clock, and he'll work till 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the evening because he's there and he's into it, and he's doing a great job. Now, he leaves the house at 8 o'clock. He doesn't get to the facility until 9. And then, the morning coffee, and he doesn't really get productive until 9:15, 9:30. And then he has to leave at 5 when everybody else leaves, and he drives an hour to get home. So his day is just as long, but his productivity suffers. And then, if he's going to work at home in the evening, then we've got the security issues to deal with. So, it doesn't sound like a great idea to me. If the employee is at least as productive remotely as it is in the office, let him work remotely. He probably will be more productive. It can't be done with every employee. Some people have to be there hands-on. When I was consulting, I couldn't do that remotely. I had to be there and see what the machines are doing and talk to the people in their own offices. So it wouldn't work for me. But there are many pieces. It's an interesting side note here. When automation has been taking its leaps and bounds as it's pervaded the manufacturing space. I noticed, a lot of people noticed that managers and supervisors who normally would spend 7.5 of their 8 hours at the plant in their office working on their laptops or making phone calls and whatnot, Now they've got all of that on their phone or their tablet, and they can be walking around the plant at the same time that they're doing all that office work. So I've seen a great migration of managers and supervisors out of the office and out into the plant or into the warehouse, doing the same kind of online work and analysis and scheduling and all of that they used to have to do in the office. Now they do it on their tablet. And that's great, because they're much more in touch with what's going on in the plant. And their visibility adds to their supervisory function. So we're seeing, the kind of flip side of that with people working from home. Maybe it counterbalances the advances that we saw with the supervisors in the plant. So it's kind of amusing to see that same technology having opposite effects in different parts of the organization.
I know, Patrick, you have an opinion on that as well, because I think we had this conversation 2 months ago. So employees demand in the meantime to work from home, at least part-time. Yeah. So that is a trend that we see almost everywhere. But at the same time, we also hear often that it's difficult to get the employees back to the office, right? The managers demand also to have some office time with them in person. What are the current challenges, but also opportunities you see actually in this industry when it comes to hybrid work, remote work?
Patrick, you have an opinion on
Patrick?
This? Yeah. Okay. Whatever you do, you can only do it wrong. That's what we see right now when we tried as a big company to bring people back to the office. We are now even at a phase where we are thinking about feel-good managers, where to attract people, to have once a week a free ice cream and other stuff. So we do whatever we can to bring the people home, because this 2 years they get used to this freedom, and we didn't see a drop in productivity. So people got the trust, they love the trust, they love the flexibility. When they want to do private stuff in an hour, they just work a little bit longer. That's all in the law allowed and possibly, and they love the trust we give them, and we love the productivity they give back without driving time, as Dave just mentioned, and things like that. What we feel, and that's just a feeling, not a currently seen in KPIs, is due to this camera time, we lost innovation somehow. That's just a feeling. When you are now, we had some workshops while 10 people were in a room, and suddenly what happened there, of course, the first hour, people just wanted to talk while they now see each other, and they love that, chit chat and stuff like that. But then they brainstormed and co-created things. And I think I've never experienced that co-creation energy while sitting in front of a camera. So services continued to work, people did their productivity, but I'm questioning if, while having some sort of co-creation time, I don't need to sit in the office while having half an hour slots. That's totally useless. But while going there to brainstorm something, co-create, and have some talking time with colleagues to connect and make bonds again, because a lot of new people joined. We never saw them, actually. So these are things where I see it as a necessity. I don't want to say, is it the 2 days, 3 days? I don't know. Every unit knows it best, what is best for them. Is it the 1 day, the 2 day, whatever, a flexible, a week, focus week? Some of our guys tried that. There are multiple models, but I think it is valuable for some reasons to be in the office while still maintaining the flexibility, and talents for sure are demanding this. We are losing people. It says, what, you have a contract in Germany, at least 2-something days in the office. I know over a year in average. So, okay, I'm flexible, but no, I want to have a full remote contract. Otherwise, I'm not your guy, and I'm happy to be in the office, but not in a contract. So challenging times.
Yeah, and you're right. You're absolutely right. That time together, the interchange that you get, what we used to call brainstorming in the old days, definitely a factor. I'm reminded of 20, 30 years ago, there was a move towards flex time. Instead of everybody being there from 8 to 5. Then you could come in anytime between 5 a.m. and midnight, but there were core hours. everybody needs to be there between 10 and 1 or 12 and 2 or something like that. We can apply that same idea to flex days.
Yeah.
Everybody's in the office, on Friday. Friday's not a good choice. On Wednesday, and maybe not even all day. But depending on how much interaction generates those ideas and that interchange, it could be a whole day, it could be a half a day, it could be a day and a half or 2 days, and that'll vary by industry and the task at hand and so forth. But yeah, that interaction, that person-to-person contact is certainly valuable in most cases. But you need to be practical about it, and recognize that there's value to that remote work as well.
Yeah.
So we're groping our way along and trying to figure out what the right answer is, and it's going to be a different answer in different situations, I think.
Okay.
I absolutely also agree. I think the creativity level has decreased when we had this pandemic and when all of us were working fully remote. I mean, we have tools such as Miro or any other whiteboarding tools, but I think it's more difficult to brainstorm, to collaborate with each other if you are not physically in front of a whiteboard. That's at least my opinion. I think we've overcome such kind of challenges. I also have seen once lockdowns were finished that traveling has heavily increased. So we were really looking forward to meet the customers and also the internal colleagues, just to be able to have a better experience. So yeah, hybrid work is also about inclusivity, to ensure that nobody is neglected, so that everyone is part of this. So what kind of challenges are we going to face with hybrid work? Let's say 50% is offsite or at home, maybe 10% is traveling somewhere, and then we have 30% in the office. What kind of challenges will we face?
Well, we've talked about several of them already. One being the security issues, the data security. It's really trust, I think, is a big factor. We haven't addressed directly, but people have had a chance to prove their trustworthiness over the last 2 years, working much more remote than is probably healthy. But if people have proven that they're as productive or more in that remote setting, then that shouldn't be an issue. Other than if a new employee or somebody who has changed their mood and their level of dedication for some reason or other. But those are personnel issues you deal with, whether they're remote or local.
What about the blue-collar workers? So they have this physical dependence. So in contrast to the white workers, they cannot work from home. Do they get additional perks, or how can you compensate actually the blue-collar workers? How can we give blue-collar workers also the possibility to some degree to work from home? Or is that even possible?
Well, when you buy pizza for the remote workers that come in on that one day a week, make sure you get enough for everybody in the plant too. I'm being facetious, but it's an HR issue, and it's motivation, and I don't think it's that much different if you've got remote people and local people, except that the people that have to do their work in the plant are going to see those other folks perhaps that can work at home and be a little bit envious. But I think most people will recognize that it's not possible to assemble a dashboard in your back bedroom. It's got to be done on the production line. So
what we currently see, Saša, before we come to the blue-collar worker, is so many basic things we might have slept or missed. Is when people come back to the office, they first challenge the infrastructure there. The first answer we get is, wow, at home, I have a high-speed internet. Now I'm in the office. Seems like there are some hiccups, or even it's slower than at home. That's the first thing. then
Oh,
these
no, that's not possible.
At least for us, it is. And the next thing is then they're in the meeting room trying to power up their meeting room. First, it's about cabling and stuff. Look at here. We are at the home. We have a laptop. You look in front of the camera. If you're 5 people in a room, first you look at someone from the side. He looks to the camera. Oh, here you are. Where are you? Then the audio doesn't work. Then it's this, hey, you have some scratchy noises here. Someone writing down on a pen. So these are things you haven't experienced over the last 2 years. Now, when people are back, you see infrastructure needs to improve and behaviors needs to change. That's for white collar workers. Blue collar, we never had that issue. They continue to work. And as Dave said, maybe HR need to change the way that they get also some benefits, while white collar might now get with hybrid models for sure.
Patrick, maybe one of the reasons why the broadband is full is because in the office everyone is streaming Netflix from one place, right? So that can cause bottlenecks.
They have no internet breakouts for sure. That's why we're gonna change also that. But true, that is one. Yeah,
no, there are technologies to prohibit access to streaming vendors or providers. So we touched earlier also on sustainability, and this is seen in the meantime as a big lever to attract and retain talent. And I have a very good example. So the son of my cousin, he really looks, he does his research. He looks actually of how actually could the company, what kind of sustainability story the companies have, and what kind of purpose the companies have, right? So sustainability and purpose are getting more and more importance when it comes to talent retention. So my question would be actually, have you seen this also growing within your business? Is this demand also bigger that you can provide a better corporate message or answer to these kind of trends and topics? Patrick, maybe if you want to start.
It's just, I want to mix it. It's sustainability and the story of a company. So when we when we as a company try to compete with hyperscalers, from a salary perspective, we might not win. If some big company is there for growth and hyperscaling, like hopefully we can mention, otherwise beep it. When we compete, we don't compete. But when there's Amazon offering something, why Amazon Web Services, they have a salary level which is for our company maybe a senior management level, from someone fresh from university or a little bit experienced, something we would never compete to. But if you look at these companies, I'm pretty sure they have, from a sustainability perspective, a nice storyline. But when we tell our people that might want to leave, it's fine, all good. Here you have the job that you can do because you work on a product, while if you work on our company side, you use the product and implement it in a way that it's fit for thousands of use cases. So the challenge might be on the implementation side, the fun part, while developing and creating the product might be the basic use case one. Might be a good story. I don't know how to retain talents. And now to your sustainability story, this is one story point we might tell. The other for sure is people are, as you said, are checking the internet about sustainability scores and how serious, what is the purpose of a company? Does a company interact with people in danger or in need? And is there a purpose, a technology of this company that will help? Then, wow, that's a product I like. And I like the purpose of this company, while they do on top of making business. They serve the world. That's really important. And I like it. While others might scale and are just there. Again, not the companies I mentioned before, just out of whatever random company, people are gonna compare them. And if there is a purpose, they might like it. If there is no purpose, they might have the freedom of choice, wherever for whom they want to give their talent. That's what we need to say. Meanwhile,
Dave, what about you? What did you have seen at your customers and organizations?
Yeah, well, sustainability is certainly a part of the picture when we're looking at the overall relationship with employees and their companies. Patrick's point about the pay scale being different in different industries and different segments. pay is certainly important, but it's not the whole position. And that's to the benefit of a company like Siemens. That's perhaps not the biggest and not doesn't pay as highly as some of the other folks that are competing for the same people. I'm reminded of a story. I guess it's a parable that I used to hear in the HR business, that you're walking along the street and you see a workman by the side of the road, and he's placing bricks into a structure, a mason, and walk up to him and say, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm putting this brick in this place." Well, the next block walks by another mason that's doing basically the same thing, and he goes up and says, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm building a wall." Okay, there's a different outlook about what their job is and what they're doing. And the next, a couple of blocks later, walks by another mason, and he's doing the same thing, and he puts a brick on the wall, and the man asks him what he's doing. He says, "I'm building a cathedral that's going to last for 1,000 years." So that's what you need to do when dealing with these employees, is give them the vision of what your whole organization is up to. And certainly sustainability is a growing importance to the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen whatever they are these days. Far more important than old guys would consider. I'm a boomer, so we wouldn't care about you pay me and treat me right, then that's all we need to know. But the younger generations are much more aware of their place in the world and what they do day to day and the effect it has on the planet and future generations. So that's a benefit to smaller companies or the ones that are not able to compete on a wage basis. They can find other ways to attract those folks and have them feel better about their place in the world and what they do every day.
Absolutely agree. I think one point is to have a great vision, right? And this will probably also attract the talents. But the more important point is actually to execute this vision, so to retain the talents.
It can't be taught.
It needs to be, exactly. So otherwise people will leave quite soon. So we are almost at the end of our talk, and I have one final question for you, and you can be here very bold because it's about predictions. So my last question is, what is the future of manufacturing in a world of hybrid work? And do we need to have offices in the future and manufacturing plants full of stuff? Or are we going to meet in the future also in a metaverse? So what are your bold predictions for the next coming years?
Want to go first, Patrick?
I can. As an IT guy, I'm, what a coincidence, like sometimes when the time allows it, to game. And since a year ago, under my Christmas tree was my first Oculus device, meanwhile Meta Quest device, which allow me to dive into a world of virtual gaming. This was, I'm still sick to motion sickness, so I have not that time to extensively train myself, but whenever I can, I do it, and after half an hour I might regret it because of the thing. As we should be bold, my vision is clearly, we talked about digitization, automation, about digital twins, so simulation. If you now connect this new trend of a metaverse, pair it with something like you have an industrial metaverse. And of course, this is now not a big marketing thing, but if you like to connect and Google for accelerator, Siemens industrial metaverse, you might be surprised to see that there are things already ongoing. And if you think the vision, put in your goggles, you are at home and you somehow co-create something and work around it and feel it. There are haptic gloves meanwhile. So you produce something digitally, you simulate it, you see the results, you try different angles, different approaches, and at the end your product simulate in a simulated world would work, and then you go to manufacture it for sure in the real world. So looking at these unlimited potentials, I think that is something that could work. I'm not sure if this metaverse thing is a trend topic, and in some years we might love, or we all will find ourselves doing such meetings in the metaverse. But I still think the real potentials for an industrial metaverse, that is really there. And it's not about gaming. This time it's about manufacturing, producing, simulating. So that is my bold vision statement of what I think would be the future of manufacturing in this new hybrid world.
Dave, what about you?
Yes to all of that. I have a friend in the analyst business that would say, in a private conversation, that he was very comfortable making predictions, because if he was wrong, he just changed the PowerPoint slide. Nobody knows the difference. Nobody cares. It's like being a weatherman. Everybody expects you to be wrong. So what? We do it for amusement. I agree with what Patrick said about automation, and what I said earlier too about when we're trying to replace Far East suppliers with somebody more local, they're going to be replaced by a whole lot of automation. So we're not going to recreate those jobs for people, because we're going to use robotics, we're going to use simulation, we're going to use all the technologies, so that a plant that produces the same product in the same volume today in Malaysia, China, Vietnam, whatever, with 1,000 employees, you can probably duplicate that product and that production in an automated plant with 100 employees. And that trend is going to continue. Yeah. 500 years ago, it took 80 or 90% of the population on the agricultural field to feed everybody else. Now agriculture is 2 or 3%, 4% of the population, and they're feeding much more than even existed 500 years ago. And the same thing is going to happen in all the other industries, all kinds of manufacturing. Yeah. So every new plant, every upgrade, every retooling is going to eliminate labor content by automation, simulation, all the things we've been talking about. Will we get to the point where nobody is ever employed in a factory? Not in my lifetime, but I'm old. So, is that 20 years from now? Is it 100 years from now? I don't know, but it's going to happen. Automation will take over all of the repeatable, routine, repetitive tasks, probably within the next 5 or 10 years, ones that are still left. And then automation will get better and better at handling the ad hoc things. You'll have a robot that goes in and replaces or tunes or repairs the robot that's producing the product. Those are coming. I can't tell you when, but that's the way we're going, and the rate of change is continually increasing. So, there's a bright future out there, except if you're a Luddite and you're fighting the technology, you're going to lose. You have to learn to work with the technology and be on the information side rather than the put tab A and slot B side.
Absolutely love your bold predictions, and I agree with both of you. Yeah, I mean, I always say everything which can be automated will be automated if it's linear or repeatable. That's a very simple thing. So that will happen probably next months or even a couple next years. But then we have this strong AI, and that might be in 5 to 10 years in time. But I agree, it will be more virtual. It will be more sophisticated, less labor works on this side. So yeah, great. Thank you very much, Dave and Patrick. I really enjoyed our conversations, and dear attendees, I also hope you have enjoyed the discussions. You can reach out to us via LinkedIn. Other than that, I wish you a very nice day. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.